Welcome, everyone. My name is Lilia Perez. I'm the Grants and Programs Manager for Arts Mid-Hudson, and we're here today to provide all the information you'll need to apply for the 2023 Ulster County Cultural Service and Promotion Fund, which is a fund we administer at Arts Mid-Hudson through the support of the Ulster County Legislature. And we're so grateful to the legislature for approving this program and all of their support so that we can give this funding to arts and cultural organizations in our region in Ulster County that really need it. Again, my name is Lilia Perez. I'm the Grants and Programs Manager. I've been at Arts Mid-Hudson for over 7 years working on this program and other grant programs. I'm happy to answer any of your questions related to this funding opportunity. And I also have a background in photography. So especially if you're struggling with any work samples or photo or file type issues, you can always reach out to me. That's another area that I know quite a bit about. And my email that you can reach me at, especially for anything, I have a personal email address, which I'm happy to share with you. You can find on our website as well. But if you're asking any questions about Ulster County Cultural and Promotion Service and Promotion Fund, I really recommend emailing grants@artsmidhudson.org directly. It'll help make sure that you're responded to quickly. And we also have our phone number, 845-454-3222. My extension is 11. So if I'm not there, you can leave a voicemail and I'll get back to you. But email is the quickest way. I can usually respond to email quite quickly. So today in this presentation, we're going to talk about the purpose of this fund, go over the important dates, go over the basic guidelines and the application, and then just give you some information you'll need to submit your application. And then, of course, for those of us that are here today, I'll answer questions. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there are several Q&A sessions, which I'll go over in a few minutes, where you can come and we're just going to focus on answering questions. And, it's really good to attend those because you can hear others' questions as well as your own. So the Q&A session, you can find the up-to-date schedule on our website listed there. I say that because I'll list them later in this video. But sometimes we add some if we see a need. So just you can check back and if you sign up for them, you'll get an email reminder before every Q&A session. If you're here today, you already are on this list because it's one list that we send all of the emails for the info session and the Q&A session ahead of time. Just make sure if you're planning to attend a Q&A session, you're watching this on YouTube now, that you sign up at this RSVP because that's how you'll get the Zoom access information. All of these Q&A sessions are conducted on Zoom. They last about an hour, but you can stay for as long as you need. If there's any additional accommodations you'll need to be able to participate, please reach out to us. We offer a variety, since this is public funding that we're administering, we offer a variety of types of accommodations. So just let us know what you need and we'll be happy to help you. And we also have one-on-one assistance available in addition to the Q&A sessions and this session, where we can discuss your specific questions related to the program, brainstorm ideas together. I can read and review your draft and budget. A lot of people don't realize that, so you'll probably hear me say it a few times today, but we are more than happy to review a draft or review budget or review a specific question if you need some help in one area. And strongly recommend it because we'll always have some feedback for you, even if you feel like you're close to done. And you can make an appointment to get one-on-one assistance with us at artsmidhudson.youcanbook.me. That link is on our website. If you receive any emails from the grants email, you'll also see that it's always in the email signature as well. So you can click, make an appointment with us there. Just going over again, these are the types of grant assistance we provide. And I would just, if you're maybe looking at Arts Mid-Hudson funding programs for the first time this year, just know that we provide tons of free assistance on all of our grant and funding programs. We also do a lot of brainstorming and networking. So it's a great way to kind of let us know what you're doing, what kind of partners or collaborators or artists you might be looking to work with. And we're really happy to make connections and help foster collaboration. All right, we'll go over the purpose of this funding program. So it's a funding resources, the Ulster County Cultural Service and Promotion Fund. It's a funding resource dedicated to maintain the arts and cultural assets of Ulster County, specifically through capacity building initiatives and programmatic support. And the financial resources program have been made available by the Ulster County Legislature, and Arts Mid-Hudson administers it. We also administer another funding stream for Ulster County called the Statewide Community Regrant Program. That's not currently available. It'll be available this fall for 2024 programs. So keep an eye out for that if you are looking for other funding for next year. I'll go over the way this is going to work today is I'm going to go over the general goals and some stuff that applies to the program as a whole, and then I'll speak specifically about the two types of applications we'll accept: capacity building initiatives and programmatic support. So some of our goals with this funding program are to support nonprofit arts and cultural organizations in Ulster County in efforts to grow, expand, or improve their work. And that specifically is referring to capacity building initiatives. We are really pleased to be able to support capacity building initiatives because we've seen over the decade that we've been doing this program how much impact it has on the organizations in Ulster County and their ability to expand what they're able to do, to expand their areas of revenue, to provide better and advanced services to the public and to visitors. And you'll hear me say a few times today that capacity building initiatives are a priority for this program. We have a set percentage of our funding that must go towards capacity building initiatives. And so for that reason, it's our first goal. It's really one of the main areas that we're trying to achieve through this program as a whole. Another goal is to positively impact the arts and cultural scene of Ulster County by strengthening established arts organizations which benefit residents and visitors. So again, referring to capacity building initiatives, that we're hoping to strengthen the existing arts and cultural organizations that exist in Ulster County and expand what they're able to do. Support for arts and cultural organizations led by Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asian, people of color, LGBTQ+, and/or disabled arts workers. So where you'll hear us talk about service to underserved audiences, but we're also particularly interested in supporting arts and cultural organizations that are led by and have leadership that are representative of these underrepresented groups in our region in Ulster County. Fund activities which increase participation in the arts by residents and visitors, especially to individuals from historically underrepresented communities. Important dates. So the deadline for this year is Monday, September 25th, 2023. The deadline, the online submission process closes at 11:59. So, we don't say midnight, it closes on Monday at the very end of the day, okay? And grant notification will be in October. We say likely just because, as we know, there can be, you'll hear me talk about our review process, but it's entirely based on the generosity of volunteer peer panel reviewers. And so since we need to assemble that group and be conscious of everybody's time and schedules, we are confident we'll be able to give out notification in October, but I just like to say likely in case there is a slight chance it goes over a little bit. And all funded projects must occur between October 1st, 2023 and September 30th, 2024. So it's not a full calendar year. It's really from the onset of when this application period concludes. So this is in line with those that will be wrapping up from last year. They had a similar funding schedule. All right, now I'll go in depth on capacity building initiatives and what we consider to be eligible in that category and who is eligible to apply. So capacity building initiatives are intended to help nonprofit arts organizations work more effectively and better meet their mission. And so the mission is something that you'll hear me talk about a couple times today. It's a way that we establish, first of all, if an organization is an arts and/or cultural organization, if they have a stated focus on arts and/or culture in the organization's mission. And further, these capacity building initiatives that you might apply for should really be enhancing the organization's mission in some way, that there's a clear relationship between what the mission of the organization is and how this initiative will help the organization better meet their mission. Initiatives may create a new area of work, develop new strategies, or enhance current programming in a significant manner. And please note when you're submitting an application to the Ulster County Cultural Service Promotion Fund, for submitting one application, either for a capacity building initiative or for programmatic support. And as I said before, capacity building initiatives are priority for funding. The funding range is $2,500 to $7,500. There is no cash match required. Organizations that are established in Ulster County, arts and/or cultural organizations must have been in existence for 3 or more years and have a record of success to be eligible and to apply. And when we say have been in existence for 3 or more years, that could mean a couple different things. It could mean very straightforward, they've been incorporated as a nonprofit for at least 3 years, or they were doing significant programming as an unincorporated group and maybe for 5 years, and maybe they just got their nonprofit status and they've only been a nonprofit for 1 year. Both of those groups would be eligible for funding. They have to have been in existence in some form, incorporated or non-incorporated, for at least 3 years and have a record of at least 3 years doing successful programming. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to me. And that can be a bit of a balance, right? So if you've been an unincorporated group for 3 years and maybe you had a little bit of a rocky start and you just got your nonprofit status, I would say that you're still eligible, but you might, the panel might be looking at you a little bit more carefully and really, trying to make sure that this is an applicant that they feel confident in funding. Mediums, so organizations working in all expressive artistic disciplines are eligible, including visual, performing, written, digital, traditional, and experimental mediums. Okay, so who's eligible to apply? All applicants must be a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization which identifies arts and/or cultural services as a primary activity in the organization's mission. So I talked about that before. In order to apply, you must be a nonprofit organization and doing programming for at least 3 years. You do not have to have been incorporated for 3 years. Applicant organization must be incorporated in Ulster County, have at least 3 years of programming history, and have a board of directors or another governing body that meets to determine policy. Organization must have a non-discrimination policy in place and may not discriminate on the basis of race, color, national origin, religious belief, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, or disability. And when we say that you must have a non-discrimination policy in place, this means it must be board approved and should have been board approved before the date that you submitted your application. So if you do not currently have a non-discrimination policy in place that is board approved and in writing as a part of your, not just like regular way of doing business, but an actual written policy approved by your board, I would get on that right away if you plan to apply for this program. The organization must also be in adherence to the Nonprofit Revitalization Act of 2013. You can look that up if you're unfamiliar with the ins and outs of that best practice guidance. But really, it's a way for us, for the panel, to ensure that they're going to look at some financial documents that you'll submit as a nonprofit. Depending on the size of the organization, you may submit an audit. And so these are documents that they'll check to make sure you're in adherence with the Nonprofit Revitalization Act. If you have any concerns, a great resource for that is NICON, the New York State Council on Nonprofits. Okay, who's ineligible? Individuals, public school districts and their components, colleges and universities and their supporting foundations, units of government, government agencies, libraries, social service organizations, unincorporated chapters of organizations for which the parent organization is not located in Ulster County. So the nonprofit, the place that we're sending the check to must be based in Ulster County. And organizations or groups that have not submitted the requisite reports on prior activities to Arts Mid-Hudson. So if you received a grant from us, and I would say mostly now for 2022 to 23, the last grant cycle, if we are still missing any reporting from you or the previous year, I would say that I know we still have some outstanding from 21, 22. If you're one of those people, you've probably received many emails from us at this point. So I would just strongly recommend, please make sure you are all up to date on reporting before you submit your application. And if you have any concerns that you're not up to date with reporting, you can email grants@artsmidhudson.org, and I'll be happy to check for you and just let you know what's there and what we have. Okay, what's eligible as a capacity building initiative? So I'm going to list a lot of different types of initiatives. It's a very broad category by design, because there are a lot of different things organizations can do to build their capacity. So the first example, strategic planning or board development. We've gotten a few requests and successful applications for this over the years, past couple of years especially. New or expanded staff position, so hiring a new person or expanding an existing staff person's hours. Capital improvements to a building that the nonprofit or cultural organization owns or has a long-term lease on. Technology upgrades, website and or equipment upgrades. So buying new equipment, especially if the equipment is going to expand what the organization is able to do or the types of programming they're able to put on, or doing updates to a website that are going to improve your ticketing infrastructure or the way you're getting information out to your audience members. Lots of different types of upgrades that I've seen very successfully people apply for over the past few years. In this area, it's particularly helpful to list out, say you're going to get new equipment, to kind of list out what are the key pieces of equipment that you're going to be getting, and maybe even just putting them all together in a cart on B&H or whatever site you're using, and showing, what are all the items that you need to purchase. Audience or marketing plan development, so any efforts that are going to be undertaken to expand your audience, like maybe doing a rebrand or redesign of your materials, starting a new marketing plan that is more overall for the organization as a whole or for the year. We do not recommend capacity building initiative funding. It is not general operating support, and it is not program support. So it should not be based on marketing for specific programs for the year. But if it was a marketing plan to kind of do more community outreach or expand your audience as a whole, increase awareness of the organization, your arts and cultural programs as a whole, that would be more appropriate for capacity building initiative. Up above, we also listed strategic planning and board development, and then we added as well diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion training would also be eligible. And then any other activity which will improve the organization's ability to produce excellent arts and cultural programming for residents and visitors to Ulster County. So I can think of a whole host of examples of programs that were not specifically one of these areas. There is such a thing also as programmatic capacity building, where maybe you're going to really put a lot of work into enhancing a new program or offering or part of your repertoire, and that's going to expand the audience that you're able to go into or the types of programs you're able to put on. So if you have an idea for an initiative that doesn't really fit within one of these categories, that's a great thing for us to brainstorm together on a one-on-one call and try to figure out what's most appropriate for this program. I'm going to give some more examples though and tips. A general tip though is that when you're undertaking a capacity building initiative, it's a really good time to think about inclusion, no matter what the capacity building initiative is. And so at Arts Mid-Hudson, we are striving towards broad inclusion and true access to arts and cultural programming for all. These initiatives are often wide-ranging and present opportunities for the organization to be more inclusive. And so we really encourage this to be a time to think about outreach to other groups in the region in Ulster County that maybe don't regularly engage with your programming, or seeking input from around your organization, your patrons. And that could be a part of your initiative that you write. Maybe you haven't done that community feedback gathering yet, but that could be built in as part of your timeline that you're going to undertake a process like that at this point in the project or in the initiative, so that you can help it guide you in the later parts of the initiative. So maybe if you were going to do an audience development or new marketing plan, you might consult with a marketing coordinator who's going to be working on the plan for you. And maybe the first portion is going to be a feedback listening sessions or surveying. and that will then inform what you actually end up doing in the plan you put in place. And that's a big part of strategic planning as well. So if you plan to undertake something like that, it's a good time to put that, it's good to put that in your application and make that clear. So new or expanded staff positions. So these are just some things to keep in mind if you're going to be going for hiring a new person or expanding an existing staff person's hours. And you'll see on the application that if you are, there's a question that explicitly asks, are you hiring someone or is someone being paid as a result of this initiative? Depending on how you answer that, other questions will pop up which get at the core of a lot of this. Is it a new hire? Is it expanding someone's hours? There will be a place to upload a resume if you have it. So you'll see that the application really guides you through this portion, but be aware that these are the types of things that you're going to want to address on your application. So first of all, making a case for why this hire is important to the organization now. I would say in general, that's a big part of capacity building initiatives, making a case for why it's important and going to be impactful at this time for the organization, and especially for a new hire. And consider how your constituents, the public, visitors to Ulster County, residents of Ulster County, are going to benefit from this hire. So it might seem like that's a silly thing to think about, but if say you're going to, let me think of an example, you're going to hire a development consultant, and they're going to work with you for the next year and help you put together a funding calendar, work on some applications with you, and do that work. What is the benefit then to the public that this person who's in more of an administrative role and is maybe not going to have much engagement with the public, but what's the impact they're going to have? Well, they're going to help the organization get organized. They're going to bring in more funding to the organization. They're probably going to expand the type of programs that the organization is going to be able to do. Maybe they're going to free up some time from the executive director or the admin assistant. So really thinking expansively of like, okay, what really changes for the organization if this person is here and in place? And what does that mean outside the organization? What's the ripple effect beyond the organization? So I'd encourage you to think about that and make a case for that in your application. How will the job be posted? You'll see there's a specific question that will ask that if it's a new hire. And it's hard to say for sure. I've heard panelists go both ways where they say this organization doesn't know who the person they're going to hire is yet. And I like that because it's open. They've just described how they're going to post the job. Or other panelists might say this applicant provided their top 3 candidates, and I like that I can see who they are and I can read their resumes. So there's pluses and minuses to both. I think just transparency with the public on how you're conducting the hiring process, or just transparency with the panel if it's really that you're strongly considering promoting someone from within, you can talk about that. But just be clear about which way you're leaning, and I would say err on the side of public access and transparency. What will the new staff accomplish? So speaking specifically around what are their tasks going to be, their responsibilities, and what are they bringing to the organization that was not already present. How will the position be sustained, or is it one-time consultancy? You'll see that there's a question that specifically asks that on the application. And what's really important about this to consider is how it's going to be sustained beyond the funding period. So it's a capacity building initiative. It's not general operating support. This is not the type of fund where you can apply to hire this person and then apply next year for them to just continue doing that job, right? You're going to need to either seek other funding to support them, or somehow it's, maybe if it's a development person, the new income that you're anticipating they're going to bring in as a result of their work might help fund their position. So just talking about your plans for how it'll be sustained. And if it's not meant to be sustained and it's a one-time consultancy, make sure that's really clearly stated. And all of these things that I'm pointing out, and you'll hear me talk about this when I talk about peer review, is you just want to provide a whole picture for any discerning person who might be on the other side as a peer panelist, reading all these reading many applications, right? And so that they have a clear picture and they're not sitting there thinking, oh, well, they never really told me how they're going to sustain this, and also didn't say if it's a one-time consultancy or not. And that leaves that panelist then wasting time trying to figure that out and not focusing on the good aspects of your application. For expanded staff hours, include new tasks and a resume to show relevant experience. So you might just specifically talk about how their roles are expanding, what they'll be doing with those additional hours. Okay, technology and equipment upgrades, some more things to consider. So explain the organization or your staff's capacity to use and maintain the new technology or equipment. So this is important so that the panel has an idea of who's going to be interfacing with the new equipment or software, whatever it might be, and that they feel confident that you have the staff in place already, or you have a plan on how that staff will be trained to use that new software or technology so it can really be most impactful and effective. Oops. Consider accessibility. So if you're doing technology or equipment upgrades, that might be an opportunity to think about expanding the accessibility of your programming to your audience. So just consider that as you're looking at different software and technology upgrades. Consider if you need a customized solution, which may be more costly, or an off-the-shelf alternative. So that's the difference of, we're going to hire a programmer who's going to put together a donor management system for us, or as opposed to we're going to pay Donor Perfect and become a member with Donor Perfect to do our donor management system. Both of those, getting a donor management software in place would be an appropriate capacity building initiative. And so just giving some clarity to the panel around why you're going the direction you're going, why it's appropriate for what you're doing. Think about the benefit to the organization and the audience, same concept. What is the ripple effect of this organization getting a new sound system for the community? What's the impact going to be? Will it bring more people in, or will it just really improve the experience of those that are there, whatever it might be? And then talk about what is the lifespan of the new equipment. The panelists are often quite thoughtful about that as well, and might have their own knowledge that they're bringing into it. So if you know this piece of equipment you're getting is only going to last you 10, is going to last you 5 to 10 years, and that's totally standard for that type of equipment, just clearly stating that can go a long way. So the panel isn't saying, oh, well, do they even realize this is only going to last them 5 years, for example, right? For marketing and outreach initiatives, we really recommend that you be thoughtful and research-based in your marketing and outreach initiative plans. If this is the route that you're going to go for your capacity building initiative, use the funding as an opportunity to expand your current audience. We strongly recommend hiring individuals. If you're trying to reach out to a specific group, like say you're trying to reach out to a more rural community, it might be a good idea to hire somebody who lives in that community and has experience working there, and that they might understand a better way to disseminate information in that area of Ulster County. Seek input from individuals from historically underrepresented groups. So think about ways that this can represent more or be a way for more groups, individuals in our region to have access to arts and cultural programming that they may not have been aware of before, or had access to see. Think about the relevancy of your programming to the groups you're trying to reach, or thinking about ways to adjust your programming so it's more relevant to a group you're trying to reach. And so an example of that might be if you are trying to reach out to the Spanish-speaking population in Ulster County, that would require different considerations in terms of how you're marketing to the groups, to that group. Accommodations once Spanish-speaking individuals are there so that they can participate fully as everyone else. And thinking about maybe, say most of you haven't done Spanish language work, maybe you're a music performing group and you haven't done much Spanish language work, or you kind of want to offer a bridge to your programming. There's I think of some groups in Ulster County that have brought in another performing group to perform alongside them, or collaborations in terms of who the artists or the performers are can be a really good way to bring in new audiences naturally and organically, because that group's following will come, and maybe that's a new group that's going to be exposed to your programming. And clearly explain your reasoning for various promotion tools. I will say this especially goes for any printed tools. Most printed materials are not a good fit for capacity building initiatives, other than designing those tools, some printed materials maybe that are representative of the organization as a whole. But since the lifespan on printed materials is quite short, it's not often an appropriate capacity building initiative. So just think about that when if you have to do some printed materials, make sure you have a really clear and strong reasoning for why that's appropriate for your initiative. So the evaluative criteria for the capacity building initiative. So this is the rubric that the panel is going to use to score those applications. So the quality of the applicant organization, the first category is artistic merit. The quality of the applicant organization's existing programming, track record, and the degree to which artistic quality will be improved by the proposed capacity building initiative. So talking about this really most refers to your work samples. You'll see on the application that work samples are optional, but they are strongly, strongly recommended. So I would really encourage you to include work samples. It's a great way for you to demonstrate what your organization's artistic track record is and what your existing programming is. And to then play off of that and reference it so that you can give a strong case to how the artistic quality of your programming will be enhanced or improved as a result of the capacity building initiative. Impact. So the initiative supports the applicant organization better meeting their mission. The initiative is likely to make a positive impact on the arts and cultural scene in Ulster County, and the project directly benefits, involves, and seeks input from underserved audiences. So really, this is where the panel is going to be considering what the overall impact of this will be on the community, on the organization. Is it truly going to strengthen what the organization is able to do and improve the organization's capacity? And then what is the impact that's going to be on residents and visitors to Ulster County? Then feasibility. The initiative has clearly defined activities, a realistic timeline budget, and the applicant organization demonstrates the ability to successfully complete the project. The ability of the organization to meet evaluation reporting requirements. So this really is, does the budget make sense? Does the timeline make sense? Does the description all seem quite clear and feasible and able to be executed in the way it's described in the application? And does this applicant demonstrate that they're going to be able to feasibly meet evaluation reporting requirements? And you'll see those listed. I'll talk about those today, but you'll see them also listed in the guidelines. It's an interim and final report. So some final tips on capacity building initiatives, and these are what I think and what we've seen over the past few years really make for competitive capacity building initiative applications. So those that are highly feasible, likely to occur in the way that they're described, somewhat straightforward. I would say, especially capacity building initiatives can already be quite broad. So I would think about trying to streamline your description of what you're going to be doing as much as possible. Capacity building initiatives that are sustainable, meaning that they have the impact of what you will do through this initiative will be felt beyond this year, that it will make a lasting impact on the organization in some way, or that there are plans in place to continue the initiative or grow it as appropriate for what you're doing. Applications that have clearly defined goals on what you're trying to achieve through the capacity building initiative, and built in that you have, if you have a clearly identified goal, you also will likely have measurable success, how you're likely to get to that goal, what a success would mean to you. If you're describing that in your application, that you're trying to achieve this program for this reason, and you're hoping to meet these metrics, right? Then you're really clearly stating what you're trying to do, what your goal is, and how you'll measure if you're successful or not. Efforts which increase access to arts and cultural programming. So anything that's going to expand how, really have a strong impact. These are likely to be quite competitive as well. Applications from organizations that have clearly defined history and commitment to thoughtfully serving historically underserved communities in Ulster County. So if you're an organization that has been had a really strong history of thoughtfully serving underserved communities in Ulster County, that is something that will be hugely beneficial to your application. I would really highlight that and talk about how this will help you meet that goal even further. And just in general, that you're making a strong, enthusiastic case for why this will contribute positively to the arts and cultural offerings in Ulster County. Okay, so now we're going to talk about programmatic support, which is the other side of the other type of application you could submit to the Ulster County Cultural Service and Promotion Fund. Again, you can only submit one application, and you're either applying for a capacity building initiative or programmatic support. I've had some questions before where applicants feel like they're applying for something that's in between both. If that's the case, it is probably not eligible, or it's being stretched too much across too many different things. I would encourage you to focus on one area, and of course you can only select one on the application. Okay, so the objective of the programmatic support category is to provide support for arts and cultural programming throughout Ulster County that have a measurable impact on tourism, engage local residents, and contribute to the vibrant arts ecosystem. This is a really broad category as well. There's a lot of different types of programs that we can fund, so I'll give some examples of those in a couple minutes. The funding amount is $1,000 to $5,000. There is no cash match required. Established nonprofit arts and/or cultural organizations or artistic programs that have been in existence for 3 or more years and have a record of success are eligible to apply for funding. Individuals and unincorporated groups may apply with an eligible fiscal sponsor, and I'll talk about fiscal sponsorship in a few minutes. And all expressive artistic disciplines are eligible. These include visual, performing, written, digital, traditional, and experimental medium. Who's eligible to apply? So all applicants must be a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization that identifies arts and/or cultural services as a primary activity in the organization's mission. The applicant organization must be incorporated in Ulster County and have at least 3 years of programming history and a board of directors or other governing body that meets determined policy, all so far the same as the capacity building initiative. Must have a non-discrimination policy in place, may not discriminate on the basis of race, color, national origin, religious belief, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, or disability. Must be in adherence of the Nonprofit Revitalization Act of 2013. Again, a great resource for this is NICON, New York State Council on Nonprofits. And individual and unincorporated groups may apply with a fiscal sponsor that meet the above criteria. So if you're an individual or unincorporated group and you are seeking a fiscal sponsor, they should also meet the same criteria. Because in that situation, they are truly the legal applicant. We cannot accept direct applications from individual or unincorporated groups that do not have a fiscal sponsor. And I'll also make note of this, and you'll see this in the guidelines as well. It is preferred that your fiscal sponsor be a organization, strongly preferred that they are an organization that is primarily arts and cultural. But if your regular fiscal sponsor is not, please reach out to us and we can discuss it. We may still be able to accept the application, but just know that the panel will be made aware of that, and it's really up to them if they feel comfortable funding the application. The nonprofit fiscal sponsor. Okay, so when you're applying with a fiscal sponsor, the nonprofit fiscal sponsor is the legal applicant. The fiscal sponsor is basically agreeing to extend its nonprofit status to the individual artist or unincorporated group for this application. Some unincorporated groups might have a long-standing fiscal sponsorship agreement with an organization. That's something of note if that's the case on your application to us, but it is not required. You can have a nonprofit organization that is just serving as your fiscal sponsor on this application. The project must take place in Ulster County, and the sponsored individual or unincorporated group must be based in Ulster County. Nonprofit organizations may submit directly and serve as a fiscal sponsor for one additional project. So if you're a nonprofit organization, you're applying for a capacity building initiative, you can also serve as a fiscal sponsor on one other application. We'll ask you to include a letter of agreement, which is signed by the fiscal sponsor, laying out the basic terms of your agreement. So who's ineligible? Public school districts and their components, colleges and universities, their supporting foundations, units of government, government agencies, libraries, social service organizations. in unincorporated chapters of organizations for which the parent organization is not located in Ulster County, and organizations or groups that have not submitted the requisite reports on prior funded activities to Arts Mid-Hudson. So again, if you are unsure if you're all up to date on your reporting to Arts Mid-Hudson, please email grants@artsmidhudson.org so that we can make sure that you're all up to date. So the types of programs we'll fund through programmatic support: art exhibitions, performances such as concerts and live theater, presentations such as film screenings or readings, arts and or cultural festivals, and other unique experience and interactive activities for which the main focus is arts and or cultural programming. And these should be public programs that are, open to the general public. Right, so all Ulster County Cultural Service and Promotion Fund programmatic support funded programs must be open to the general public. Again, we strive towards broad inclusion and true access to arts and cultural programming for all. We encourage thoughtful outreach to and efforts to see input from all groups in our region, and specific outreach and inclusion efforts to underserved audiences. And so we think about this as groups who may have limited access to arts programs, services, or resources due to their location, race, economic status, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, religion, disability, or other factors. And this might mean either because of their location or their economic status, or just that they don't see themselves represented enough in our region because they are part of an underrepresented group. We prioritize programs that take place in ADI compliant locations. I strongly recommend you take a look at or if you have any questions about this, you can reach out to the ADA hotline. It's very helpful. The number is listed there, 1-800-514-0301. You can apply if you have a program that's taking place in a site that is not ADA compliant. You are technically allowed to apply. Just know that the panel may prioritize applicants that are applying for programming which is fully ADA compliant. These are the areas that are priorities for expenses on your budget. So these would be the items that the panel is most interested in funding as a part of your budget: artist fees, marketing expenses, consumable art supplies and materials, and efforts to increase accessibility to arts programming. So I would say first and foremost, for programmatic support requests, the panel is always interested in funding artist fees. I often hear panelists say, "Oh, I love this application. I like what they're doing, and the entire budget is for artist fees." So it's a yes for me, right? That's something that can really impress the panel. But other, highly fundable items would be marketing expenses, especially if it's accompanied with a really thoughtful marketing plan on how you're going to expand access or reach out to new audiences through your marketing and get people there to see the program, right? And then consumable art supplies and materials, things that you need just for, at feasibility to be able to, or logistically to be able to do the project itself. And any efforts you're going to undertake to increase accessibility arts programming. So that might mean hiring translation services for promotional materials, getting a temporary ramp to make the space ADA compliant, whatever it might be. Okay, and then these are the evaluative criteria for programmatic support. You'll see it's the same three main categories, but they mean slightly different things when we're talking about programmatic support. So artistic merit, taking into consideration the program's design, proposed audience, proposed artist, audience experience, and artist/organization's past activities. So again, strongly recommend that you include work samples on your application, and especially if you have work samples that represent the artists that will participate in this project. Impact, so project is likely to make a positive impact on the arts and cultural scene in Ulster County. The degree to which the program directly benefits and includes underserved audiences and underrepresented artists. Creates a new program, fosters an emerging arts discipline, or increases opportunities for artists. Program quality is prioritized over the quantity of viewers. So for impact, the panel is really going to be considering, is this adding something new to the arts and cultural landscape in Ulster County? Is it a program that is really well regarded and it's going to be expanding this year, or the program needs money for artist fees? is the program going to be reaching out to new audiences, serving underserved audiences? Is it going to be fostering a new program or emerging arts discipline? All of these things would be huge bonuses when they're scoring for impact. And we like to include that program quality is prioritized over the quantity of viewers. This is not the type of program where we're most interested in like numbers of how many people participate. Of course, if it's a high number and you should strive to reach as many people as possible. But we're also really interested in the quality of the program. So both are important, and it's really weighing both of them. So maybe there's a program that is going to serve 5,000 people, and maybe the quality is a little bit less than one that's serving 200 people, but it's going to have a really high quality program, and the artists are going to have more direct input or direct engagement with maybe a smaller segment of that group of people that will participate through like an artist talk or something. So it's really, pointing out the pluses of your approach. So if it's something that's going to reach a lot of people, really focusing on that. And if it's something that is going to maybe reach fewer people, but in a really high quality way, focusing on that and making that case. And then feasibility, that the program has clearly defined activities, a realistic timeline and budget, seems likely to happen in the way that you're describing in the application. And you just demonstrate the ability to successfully complete the program. And yeah, so those are our three main review criteria for programmatic support. And this is the rubric that the panel will use when they're scoring applications. Okay, what makes for competitive programmatic support requests? And once we go through this, we'll go into some general stuff about the application and the review process. So again, 70% of the funding that we have available is for capacity building initiatives, 30% is for programmatic support. So just keep this in mind. If you're going for a programmatic support request, just know it's going to be highly, highly competitive. I would say Ulster County Cultural Service and Promotion Fund as a whole, whether you're going for capacity building or programmatic support, is already highly competitive. And when you're going for programmatic, it's even more. It also, though, depends on the applicant pool. I remember a couple of years ago, it was kind of scary because half of our applications that came in were for programmatic support, right? So that made it extremely competitive. Some years we get 90% of them are for capacity buildings and building initiatives, and there were so few programmatic support that it wasn't that bad. So just, keep that in mind, that if you're going for programmatic support, really make sure you're putting something in that is hitting the evaluative criteria strongly. Your track record and commitment of the organization to reach underserved audiences through thoughtful outreach and relevant programming. So again, this is if you can demonstrate that you have an existing track record of doing that successfully, that's going to make your application quite competitive in the applicant pool. Strong marketing and promotion plan, that you're demonstrating that you have really thought out how you're going to get people there to see this program. That's very critical for programmatic support, because if we're investing in this, if you're asking the panel to invest in this program, they want to know that people are going to go there and enjoy it and see it and engage with it. Contributes positively, ability to monitor and report on program goals, outcomes, and attendance. So demonstrating that you have some plans in place and are thoughtful around how you're going to track your success of the program, and demonstrating that you're going to be able to meet the reporting requirements. So this might mean that you note somewhere that you're going to survey all the attendees afterwards, right? So that would be a way that you're building into your planning for the project how you're handling this from all sides of the project. Contributes positively to the arts and cultural offerings in Ulster County, that the panel really can feel like this is something that would really have an impact on our Ulster arts and cultural landscape and be a new offering for our region. Okay, so now we'll go over submitting an application. Again, the deadline is September 25th at the end of the day. Everything must be submitted using our online submission platform, Submittable. You can find a link to that from our website, which I'll show in a moment. And you can also go directly to see all of our applications that are currently open on Submittable at artsmidhudson.submittable.com. If you require assistance in completing the online submission form, please reach out to us and we're happy to give you assistance in, finalizing your submission if you need it. I think I'm going to pause here, and those of you that are here, can you see this window now that, oh, excuse me. God. Can you see our website? Thank you. Cool. So artsmidhudson.org is our website. From here, you go to grants and funding, grants and artist opportunities, and then grants and funding. You'll see all of our grant programs listed here, and you can go to Ulster County Cultural Services and Promotion Fund and click on Learn More. And this is where you'll find all of the information about this program, where you can sign up for the Q&A sessions, make an appointment with us. And up here at the top, you'll be able to download the guidelines and go to the application. So let's take a look at the application. When you come here, you'll see that'll take you to submittable.com. There's some introductory information about the types of documents you're going to need to submit. It's going to ask you for your address, so you'll just put that in and press continue. And then it will bring you to the application form. Now, just a couple notes here. Please be thoughtful about who you're putting down as the contact person. This is who we will reach out to if we have questions about the application. And this is the person we will send funding notification to. We will email the funding letter to this person. So whoever you want to receive funding notification, that needs to be the contact person listed here. Of course, if you want it to be sent to somebody else, you can always email us and we'll send it to that, forward it to them as well. But it will initially go out to this person. And it will also be sent on submittable back to the account itself that submitted the application. That's really, the account, whatever account you make on submittable, I really recommend, especially if it's for an organization, that's an account that multiple people have access to, just so that there isn't confusion later on about, did we receive the funding notification, or I can't get in to see the documents, the application, whatever it might be. So then you'll enter in some preliminary, applicant information. Who's the organization? What's the contact information for the organization? Who's the executive director? You can copy and paste your mission statement. We ask, roughly how many you serve annually. And then this question is very important. Anytime you see a question like this is called a radio list question, one that's like a this or that. Make sure you answer those as you go, because they may reveal additional questions. So this one, are there any pending lawsuits against the applicant organization? If you said yes, you'll see that something pops up. So the last thing you want to do is skip a question like this or like another, go all the way to the end, try to press submit, and then go back and be like, okay, now I have to click in this little thing, and now a new question has popped up that you have to answer, right? So just try to do these in the order that you see them, if anything. Is the legal applicant serving as a fiscal sponsor? If the answer is yes, right, then all of, it'll appear for you to enter in. So who are you sponsoring then, Now this is really the most important, saying which you're applying to, capacity building or initiative, capacity building initiative or programmatic support, because depending on you'll see right now, the application changes. So there are basically two different sets of questions depending on what you're submitting. So make sure you do this right away so you can really see the totality of the application. So I'm going to look at it from the perspective of capacity building initiative, and then I'll go back and quickly go over programmatic support. So it's going to ask you some basic information, title of the initiative, give a 1-sentence summary. You'll enter in the total, your amount you're requesting for the initiative and your total expenses. So if the project is going to cost $5,000, the initiative is going to cost $5,000, and that's you're not seeking funding from anybody but Arts Mid-Hudson, you would then just enter in $5,000 in both places. Now, say you're asking for $5,000 from Arts Mid-Hudson, but you already got a $2,500 grant from somebody else. So then you would write $7,500 up here, and you would write $5,000 here, right? There's a question then. This is really the main, going over the overall scope of your project, description of the initiative. So you're going to describe, this is the initiative that we're going to undertake. These are our main goals. Key key activities, important details, and your plans for implementation. So this is really like your main description of what you're doing. Every other question after this is kind of just making sure we got all the key information. So I would strongly recommend, looking through the entire application before answering a question like this, so that you can see, okay, they're really going to ask me about the marketing plan down here. I'll go in depth on the marketing plan there and just kind of allude to it up here. There's a question then that asks, how will this initiative be sustained beyond the funding period? This is your opportunity to talk about, is this a one-time consultancy? Is this person continuing? Is the work going to continue for the initiative beyond the scope of this funding period that you're applying for now? And then what is the lasting expected impact on the organization? You'll see, right? Will an individual be paid as a result of this initiative? If you say yes, these questions pop up, just getting the details to make sure we understand. Are they a new hire, one-time consultant, existing staff person? Are they identified? So if they were a new hire, if you said, yes, they're already identified, it's going to ask you for a resume. If you say no, it's going to ask you how you'll identify them, right? So most of these follow kind of like a logical order, but I recommend, as I've said, go through and do these radio lists right away, because this will really reveal the full scope of your application. And then how will you track the success of your initiative? This is where you'll talk about, we'll survey the participants afterwards. We're hoping to meet these specific metrics or goals, and basically describing how you'll measure your success and demonstrating that you're going to be able to put in a report. You'll put your budget request in on this table. And this is where, so say you were requesting $5,000, we'll follow this example that I set up here, that the total project expense is $7,500 and you're asking for $5,000. And so let's say we're going to be asking $5,000 and it's all going towards a consultant. So here I would say $5,000 in this number line, and then explanation, one-time consultant. Yeah. Or it could be something like 2,500 is going to the consultant and you need to purchase a new donor management system, right? And that's going to be 2,500. As you can see, once I finish typing this in, it adds it up down here. So this is the area that's adding up these numbers, and they're all going into a total down here. You can't just like type the total in here. You have to write this in. Any number that you're putting in on this right column, it must be accompanied by something in the explanation column letting us know how you got to this number. And there's some help text down here. Please read and pay attention to it. Do not add in symbols like this. I wonder if it will do it now. Sometimes it does and doesn't. Yeah, see, when I put in this comma now, it got confused for a moment. It said 2,500 and now it jumped back to 5,000. Just to be safe, just do numeric values in here. So then there's a question that asks to describe the expenses for which you're requesting funding. If you've done a really good job in the explanation columns here, this is really just our last chance for people who leave these explanation columns blank, which happens all the time. So this is really just either a place for you to give budget notes, some additional context, or just to reiterate and confirm what you've written up here. And then there's a question that asks, are you seeking additional funding for this project from other sources? Going back up to the total expenses versus how much you're asking for. In this instance, this would be asking about the $2,500 gap. So that would be a place for you to then say, we received $2,500 from this foundation, or we applied for $2,500 and we're waiting for confirmation from this foundation. Or if there is no gap, that you're asking for the full cost of your project, you would just enter NA here or something like that. Okay. You'll upload your attachments and organizational budget. Depending on the size of your organization, your revenue, you'll upload the appropriate tax document and or audit. We ask for a staff list and a board list. This is our way to check for nonprofit best practices. And You'll upload any work samples or supplemental materials that you want to upload, like a letter of support or example of a marketing material or your annual report, whatever it might be. You'll see there's a notes section for these uploads. So if you really feel the need to include some notes on any of these areas, you can do so here. And then you'll certify at the end that, that this is all accurate to the best of your ability. And you'll just do so by signing your name, right? We're not asking for you to do an e-signature. It's just you signing your name, typing in your name there. That's acting as an e-signature for this. And then you'll press submit. There is a save draft button down here. You'll see it says last saved a minute ago. Submittable does a pretty good job of auto saving as you go, but I like to go down and press the save draft button. So while you're working or whenever you're going to leave the page, or if you're stepping away from the computer for a few minutes, I recommend just scrolling down and press save draft. If you accidentally press submit or something, no worries, and it goes through, just email us and we'll be able to undo it for you. Not a big deal. I'm going to go back up and just point out any key differences on the programmatic support side. It's pretty similar. Project title, one sentence description. This is really for administrative purposes so that we can keep track of which application is for what. You'll give a start and end date, your total project expenses, then how much you're requesting, your program description, confirm your location if it's ADA compliant. There's a space for you to talk about the key artists involved in the project and a place for you to talk about who your audience is and what your plan is to reach them. There's a question that asks about ticket prices. If the program is free, you can just write free. If there are ticket prices, you can just briefly describe them here. And you'll see that there are word limits here. They are often limits, not suggested word amounts. They're really just, a place. This is us making sure that you hit all the major points and all of the information that panel is likely to ask for. That's why I really recommend answering some of these other questions first, or at least figuring out that you're going to put some responses in other questions before doing the program description, which is kind of like going over the scope of the whole thing. And there's a question that asks what you'll do if you receive partial funding. So you can, I don't think I mentioned that for the last one, but that's just a question that you'll answer to say how the project might change if you receive less funding than what you requested. I will say that is common for this program because of the high volume of applications we receive, how competitive it is, and how much money we have to give out. Budget is exactly the same. There's a couple added typical types of expenses listed here. Exactly the same questions and pretty much exactly the same uploads unless you're doing physical sponsorship. If you are, then it will also ask for your letter of agreement. Okay, so we just went over the application. Can we see this? Somebody watching, are you able to see the full screen version of it? Thank you so much. So again, supplemental documents, we pretty much went over them: staff list, board list, organization's annual budget for the most recent fiscal year, the tax documents, and supplemental materials. Everything's available on our website, just showed us where. Just some general application and grant writing tips. So recommend that you answer the questions succinctly and directly. As I said, they're going to be reading a lot of applications. If the application is asking you a lot of questions, potentially, especially for the programmatic support side, that tends to need more details. And so I would just really encourage you to try to be as succinct as possible while still providing the details that show that the planning is in place to execute this project well. We recommend that you think about writing for somebody who knows nothing about you or the project. Do not make assumptions about what the panel should or may know about you. It is often the case that panelists will be aware of the organization's programming, but there's always going to be somebody on the panel who's not aware of the organization's programming, even for the most well-known and regarded organizations in Ulster County. So it's really important for you to write as if that you're writing to that person and not make any assumptions about what they do or do not know. And that's why it's great to have somebody else read your application or proposal, ask us for some feedback, or ask a trusted colleague or friend, even somebody who doesn't know much about the organization, just to say, like, does this project plan make sense based on what I've written? Show evidence of the evaluative criteria, and I'll also say, reference the goals of the funding program. Those two really refer to reading the guidelines. When I read guidelines for a grant program I'm applying to, I like to go through, print it out, and go through with a highlighter and highlight the areas that are sticking out to me the most, that align the most with the initiative or the project that I'm writing for. And then on my notepad, just write out key phrases that stick out to me that I think I can reference or align my project plans to. This just shows the panel that you are trying to align yourself with the goals of the program. You're reading back to them the preparation they did to prepare to review, right? They read the guidelines too to be prepared to be a reviewer. So it really helps them to connect the dots and see and feel like, oh, this really aligns with what the program parameters are. And that's exciting to a panelist that often has an impact on their scoring, I've noticed. And then controlling the review discussion, that's a shorthand way of saying to, not make assumptions, be succinct and direct, and not provide opportunities for them to get distracted. So if there's incomplete information, that could then mean during the panel discussion, instead of talking about what they really like about the project and the great artists involved or the great impact it's going to have, they're in the weeds looking at this one detail being like, well, it says that it's free here, but then over here it says there's a ticket price, right? And then they're just wasting time. It happens every panel meeting I've ever done on a few applications. So try not to be that applicant and just think, try to think about from all angles. Of course, this is a complicated process. You're providing a lot of information. We're all surely to leave out one key piece of information that we really wanted to include. That's why I think just, again, going through the guidelines, writing up some notes. I also really recommend writing, I like to always start any grant proposal with an outline of just like, these are the key things that I want to say, just like list format. That can be really helpful to make sure you're checking off all of the key points you wanted to get in there. Some tips for the budget. I really recommend, if you're not gonna, if anything, do the budget first. I think that it provides then a guide to what you're writing for, that you're supporting. These are the expenses. These are what we're going to spend. This is what we're going to spend the money on. At the very least, though, work on them together. I don't recommend writing the whole narrative first and then doing the budget. It's then you might notice when you do the budget that your writing doesn't really reflect what the budget is, right? Check for consistency. So especially from that explanation column to other places on the application, the ticket prices thing is a big inconsistency that comes up where maybe you have on the budget, in one of the budget questions, you're saying you're expecting this much in ticket revenue, and that doesn't really make sense with what you've listed elsewhere as far as how many people are attending or if the program is free or not. That kind of stuff can really distract a panel. So just think about consistency from your budget questions to your written, your more narrative questions. Use the explanation column for any number that you're putting on the application. Check the guidelines for allowable and non-fundable expenses. There are some expenses that we cannot fund, so please look at those carefully and make sure that you're clear about what we can and cannot fund. Make sure your grant request is consistent. So a helpful formula is expenses minus project income equals your grant request amount. So if you know the expenses are $10,000, just those two questions up at the top. What are your total project expenses? What are you requesting from us? And then that question that asks, are you asking for funding from other sources? That should equal that gap in your funding, explaining the gap. And please ask us to review a draft of your budget. I can look at a budget in 2 minutes and tell you if I think it's clear and easy to understand. They're pretty quick, on the other side. They're difficult to put together, but they should be difficult to put together so that on the other side, they're really quick to discern and understand. So feel free to ask for input on that anytime. All right, now I'm going to talk about peer panel review, and then we'll be wrapping up. Thanks for all of your patience listening in on all of this. So these applications will go through a peer panel review process. Panelists include artists, arts workers, and community members who evaluate grant proposals and recommend a level of funding. There are new and returning panelists every year. Arts Mid-Hudson staff and board members do not have a vote in this process. We don't serve or compose the panel. I will be there as well as my executive director to facilitate the panel discussion. I might offer my input and my thoughts, but I am not, I don't have a vote. I have a voice, but not a vote during the process. And the panelists change every year. We typically have a couple returning because they can really help move the process along and might have some input or thoughts about previous year's applicants. But for the most part, we like to get new people in there so that it's a constantly changing opportunity for applicants, that there's new people reviewing it and therefore different perspectives making these decisions. Panelists have access to information on previously funded projects if they request it. So if they want to get a summary of a final report, I'll be happy to read it to them or provide it to them. They will always ask, I will say, if you have a report that is not submitted or was submitted very late, that is something that panelists often are really serious about. Often surprisingly so to me, where I'm kind of like surprised that they're maybe more angry about it than even I am, so I would just keep that in mind. Panelists, prior grant funding does not guarantee continued support. So just because you got a grant last year does not guarantee that you're going to receive funding this year. If you would like to serve on a panel, please nominate yourself. We have a nomination form open on our website. If anybody needs the link, I can email it to them too. If you're interested in serving on a panel in the future and you're applying to this program, just put yourself in there because we'll reach out to you for a panel that you haven't applied to. Obviously, if you applied, we can't put you on the panel. Okay, our final tips. So if you need a fiscal sponsor, this is like your first order of business to secure one. If you need some input on that or suggestions, please reach out to me and I'm happy to to brainstorm with you. Review the online application form and the guidelines. And as I said, open up the application, get your draft started, and just plug in all those radio lists like yes or no questions that are going to reveal additional questions so you can see the totality of what you're going to be asked. I would recommend starting to organize your digital copies of required attachments so that you're not at the 11th hour trying to get the PDFs exported for your audit or whatever it might be, or trying to track down somebody for some document that you need. Try to get those all together, even get them uploaded early on so that's out of the way. You can just focus on writing and editing. And at any time, make an appointment with us. I'm happy. It's my favorite part of my job is to do these appointments and brainstorm ideas with people, help them answer their questions. So you are not a bother to us at all. It is a joy to work with all of you. So please make an appointment. We're happy to help you in any way we can. These are the scheduled dates for the Zoom Q&A sessions. I'll read them for the benefit of the caption. September 11th at 2 p.m., September 14th at 11 a.m., September 19th at 12 p.m., and September 21st at 4 p.m. They're all listed on our website. And if you have signed up for the info session or any of the Q&A sessions, you can attend as many of these as you like, and you will get a reminder for each one. Even if you attended one, I'm not going to take you off the list. You'll still get the reminders, but you don't have to attend if you feel like you got what you need. And that's it. My name again is Lilia Perez. I'm the Grants and Programs Manager for Arts Mid-Hudson. You can reach me again at grants@artsmidhudson.org. And our phone number, 845-454-3222, extension 11. Thanks. Okay, let me stop the recording.